this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Kurkjian. And Dad, welcome back to the basement. We are officially into July the 1st.
Yeah, July is, after October, my favorite month of the baseball season. July gives us July the 4th, which, of course, is a baseball holiday. Mm-hmm. And tomorrow, Ron Darling, former Mets pitcher, is going to talk about maybe the craziest game ever played on July the 4th, 1985, and how crazy that game was. Also in July, of course, Jeff, we have the All-Star Game.
That's right.
I've covered every All-Star Game starting with 1982.
Wow.
Then, of course, we get Cooperstown, the induction. That is an absolute stunningly great weekend. And then we have the trade deadline. So July is packed with baseball stuff, and it doesn't have to compete with hockey or basketball or even football yet. It's baseball's month. We need to celebrate it.
Speaking of the All-Star Game, Dad, it's in Atlanta this year, and so we got a Braves Hall of Famer, Chipper Jones, to join us. That'll be in a couple weeks. It'll air the day after the All-Star Game, so make sure you're listening for that. Now, Dad, did you notice anything different with your seat? Was it warm? Was it adjusted in a way you don't like? Because I actually had somebody else sitting in that chair this past weekend.
Right. Our grandson, Carson Keenahan, who's 4.5 years old, did a podcast with you over the weekend sitting in this chair, and his feet, I noticed, didn't touch the ground either, nor do mine. I'm not sure about yours. When he did the podcast, it was a dinosaur podcast. Carson is absolutely enamored with dinosaurs. I cannot believe how many dinosaur names he knows, how much he knows about dinosaurs. Thank you, Jeff. It was just a priceless little podcast with a 4-year-old.
So, yeah, he's 4.5 years old, and he's a smart kid, and he wanted to do a podcast. He saw the studio that we film in, which is in my basement in Pennsylvania, and my sister Kelly, brother-in-law Mark, and their 2 kids, Carson, of course, were here, and so we popped on for a little podcast.
Right. And, I talk to him about dinosaurs all the time. The one time I really confused him, I asked him, which dinosaur has the best vocabulary? And, of course, Carson is 4. He's confused. I said, a thesaurus. And
Very good.
He did not understand that. He will get it someday.
Let's listen to one bit, just 30 seconds of Dino Talks with Carson. That was done here. Some hard-hitting stuff. Which dinosaur is your favorite?
Like ankylosauruses, them have spikes everywhere, and sometimes asteroids hit them in 60 degrees.
Wow.
And then them became a long time ago, 20 years ago.
How long ago? Like 20 years, you said?
Yeah, 20.
20 years ago? Yeah, that's about right.
That was a really long time ago.
That was like 2005. Dinosaurs 20 years ago, Dad.
Right.
2005, they were walking this earth. Kind of crazy.
I was called a dinosaur 20 years ago, believe me, Jeff, and I'm way more of one now that I still don't understand technology and everything else on how this world works.
So also this weekend, while they were in town, we went to Sesame Place. Right. So the little girls, my daughter McKinley and her cousin Emma, your other granddaughter, could go meet Elmo and Cookie Monster and all of them, and we had a blast. They were riding little rides, but I couldn't help but think of you because these rides are kid-friendly, but I don't think they're pop-up friendly because there was one ride even I got a little woozy on. And remember when we took Carson on a merry-go-round at the zoo in town and you almost lost your lunch?
Yeah, I'm not good on it. I'm terrible with heights. I mean, I couldn't even drink high C as a kid without getting vertigo. It was bad. And anything that moves quickly, other than me being in a car, I have trouble with, and I get dizzy easily. So I have to be really careful of that. Worst ever at an amusement park. But you met Elmo. So this begs at some point, Jeff, we're going to have to do the all Sesame Street team, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually checked. There is a guy named Elmo. I didn't know him. Elmo Plaskett. Played for the 62-63 Pirates, catcher, third baseman, hit 200 with a homer and 5 RBIs. So that's a good starting point, right?
That's a really good. I mean, any players with last name Bird, Big Bird?
Well,
Well, Mark Fittrich was nicknamed Big Bird, right?
Right. So
we
he
could
could
make
be on
that
it.
happen.
Right. Drew Henson, because Jim Henson started
That's a
it.
really good one.
And of course, we have Bert Campaneris
Yeah.
and Ernie Banks. Bert and Ernie. Let's see if you remember my Bert Campaneris story. Do you remember this? All right. So when I was like 8, Pop, your grandfather, he took us to the Shoreham Hotel to get autographs of baseball players. So it's a Sunday morning. I go up to this guy in the lobby who I think is Bert Campaneris. And I say, can I have your autograph, please? And the very polite man goes, well, I'm not a baseball player, but you can have my autograph.
And you gave him the Bert Campaneris card.
No,
right?
it wasn't a card. It was just a piece of paper.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have cards for them to sign. So he signed it, and then I took it to Pop, your grandfather, and he looked at it, and the guy who had signed it was the real Harry Belafonte. So I thought it was Bert Campaneris, and it turned out to be one of the great singers of all time. He was even more famous than Campy Campaneris.
Now, is this your most prized autograph, or would you say when Steve Martin signed your cast, would that be your most prized?
I broke my hand in college playing football. It was intramural football. I wasn't playing for the University of Maryland. I broke my hand. I got a cast.
Let me just stop you there. Nobody was thinking you were...
Well aware, Jeff.
Okay.
Right hand broken, wore a cast to see Steve Martin play at the Cellar Door. Occupancy was like 110. There were about 60 people there. This is probably 1975, okay? He didn't even sell out the Cellar Door for 110 people. And a year later, he was selling out Cole Fieldhouse. Not the point. I go to see Steve Martin afterwards. He's my favorite comedian then and now. And I go up to him, and he's putting all his props away, balloon animals, arrow through the head, an amazing act that he used to do. So I said, Steve, you're the funniest guy I've ever seen. Can you please sign my cast? And he signed it. Tim, pay me the money or I'll break the other one. That's what he wrote on my cast.
That is so funny.
And of course, I don't have the cast anymore since I don't collect anything. That's something I probably should have kept.
Absolutely. Dad, let's jump right into the takeaways in Major League Baseball. What do you have?
Well, Sunday night, Tarek Skubal did it again for the Tigers. He is the best pitcher in baseball. With all due respect to Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal is unbelievable. So the Sunday night game, he became the first Tiger ever to have 13 strikeouts and allow 1 or 0 hits in the game. Ever. Not just on Sunday night.
And think about the pitchers that have come through the Tigers organization. This is not some nobodies. I mean, they've had some great names.
Right. He walked 1 batter, so now he's made 17 starts and he's walked 14. 14. Keep in mind, he's got 10 wins and 14 walks. Every year, I pray that somebody has as many walks as he has wins, or wins as he has walks, which is almost impossible to do. Brett Saberhagen in 1994, great control pitcher, 14 wins, 13 walks. Think about that.
Wow.
And that's what Tarek Skubal's doing. He retired the side in order, 1, 2, 3 in the first 4 innings. So for the season, he's got 56 1, 2, 3 innings. That's the most in baseball, because everything that he does these days, he's great at. He's got an elite changeup. He had 15 swings and misses on changeups on Sunday night. And when you have an elite changeup and you throw upper 90s and have 100 in your back pocket, that's how you're so good.
Yeah, he's so good, they're going to name a pitch after him. The Skubal. That was pretty good, right?
Jeff, that was very good. I'm proud of you. All right, also, James Wood, who's going to make the All-Star team. We've explained James Wood. I used to play basketball with his dad, Kenny Wood, all the time. I saw James Wood when he was 5 years old. He was taller than me when he was 5, but James told me at 5 I want to be a baseball player. And 15 years later, he's in the big leagues. And now he's going to go to the All-Star game. That's the kind of season he's having. So Sunday, he had 4 intentional walks in one game. 4. So he's the youngest player ever to have 4 intentional walks. We've been tracking those since 1955. Keep in mind, Jeff, the Rays team has 3 intentional walks this season. They're hitters. And James Wood got 4 in one game. So that's the last guy to get 4 in a game was Barry Bonds in 2004. The previous youngest player to get 4 intentional walks in a game was Roger Maris in 1962. Now, Jeff, I told you this recently. Roger Maris hit 61 homers in 1961 and received no intentional walks. Then the next season, in one game, he got 4. And speaking of Barry Bonds finished his career with 688 intentional walks. He had 120 in 2004. 120 intentional walks.
Oh, my God.
The American League leader that season in walks was Eric Chavez with 95.
That's just walks.
Just walks.
Not intentional
Barry
walks.
Bonds had 25 more intentional walks than the AL leader had in walks in 2004. So that's 8 now for James Wood this year. The only ones with more, Cal Raleigh, Shohei Ohtani with 10, Aaron Judge with 18. 18's a lot. Barry Bonds had 120 in one season. But it's amazing that the respect that James Wood is already getting to get an intentional walk 4 times in one game.
And I think it's really cool, too. And I would love, Dad, and this, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but like to get a list of players who played for the team that they grew up around. Right, because he's from the Maryland area,
right?
Just like we are,
right?
And now he plays for the Washington Nationals, the closest, maybe if not the Orioles, but the closest team to his hometown.
Right.
I would love to get a list, and I won't put you on the spot again, but one day of guys who were drafted and played for their teams.
Cal Ripken's a perfect example, Hall of Famer.
Aberdeen, yeah.
Yes. Joe Mauer's a Minneapolis guy, ends up being a Hall of Famer for the Twins. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Tony Gwynn, right?
Tony Gwynn is a San Diego kid and played in San Diego. So
many great ones. Okay, we won't keep going down that.
Yeah,
What else?
And speaking of great ones, Clayton Kershaw is on the verge of 3,000 strikeouts. He'll be the 20th pitcher to have 3,000 strikeouts in his career. The only pitchers who have done it 3,000 for one team. That doesn't mean they only played for one team, but they had 3,000 for one team. Walter Johnson. Did I ever tell you I went to Walter Johnson High School? He worked for the pitch. Bob Gibson, Steve Carlton, and John Smoltz. Again, John Smoltz played for other teams, but he had 3,000 strikeouts for the Atlanta Braves. So just another. So Clayton Kershaw. What is my anagram for Clayton Kershaw? Let's see if you can remember this.
L.A. King wants Cy.
All right, it's L.A. Cy Hero.
Oh, God, why do I always say King?
Right.
L.A. Cy Hero
wants K.
Or L.A. K Hero wants Cy.
Because if he got 3 more on Monday night, I'm sure he did, it would get him to 3,000.
Nothing makes my dad lose sleep more than when we have to record this on a Monday afternoon because I'm a morning show host, so I can't be editing things at 11 p.m. with a 1.5-year-old upstairs and having to wake up at 3:30. So last night the Dodgers played. If he got 3 strikeouts, he hit the 3,000.
And I'm also doing the Padres and the Phillies game on Monday night, so I'm not in a position to be running back to your house to update one paragraph. Let's just assume Clayton Kershaw got it. If he didn't, he'll get it in the next start.
Worth mentioning, too, this Sunday, correct, Dad? You're going to be doing the Padres game on ESPN, right?
Yes, in San Diego against the Rangers, so I'm prepping for that. Saw the Rangers twice last week, Padres tonight, and we'll go from there. And last but not least, Jeff, we say goodbye to Dave Parker at age 74, Hall of Famer, died of Parkinson's disease. He was supposed to go officially into the Hall of Fame at the end of July. It's such a shame. Dave Parker is one of the best players I've ever seen, an absolutely dominant player, won the MVP in 1978. He also finished in the top 3 of the MVP voting 4 other times. Wow. He was a 7-time All-Star, won 3 Gold Gloves, won 2 batting titles. He was an enormous man who could really run and could really throw. And famously, 1979 All-Star game in Seattle, the throw he made to get Brian Downing at the plate, great catch and tag by Gary Carter, was one of the great iconic moments in the history of the All-Star game. Dave Parker was also a gigantic personality. Wore an earring, had a great smile, wasn't afraid to say all sorts of things, even if some of them were controversial. He had a great nickname, the Cobra, because of the way he kind of attacked a baseball. And I remember he wore a Star of David around his neck. And someone asked him, like, why do you wear that? And he goes, well, my name is David, and I'm a star. And he's one of the great stars in the history of Major League Baseball. R.I.P. Dave Parker. We'll go into the Kurkjian. So the Guardians this week had 2 games in a row where they had more errors than hits. Let's think about that for a second. They had 2 hits and 4 errors in one game. The next game they had 1 hit and 2 errors. Pretty bad sign back-to-back games. So I checked with Frank at the Elias, and 1969 on, the divisional era, the only team that did that in consecutive games, and I remember this, was the Braves in 2020, the COVID year. So both games, it was a doubleheader, and both games, of course, are 7 innings, because that's what we did during the COVID season of 2020. Right. So in the first game, they got 1 hit and made 2 errors. In the second game, they got no hits and made 1 error.
Wow.
So in that doubleheader, they got 1 hit and made 3 errors. Madison Bumgarner pitched a 7-inning no-hitter in the second game. So that's the only other time since 1969 that any team had consecutive games where they had more errors than hits in each game.
That's impressive. What happens if Frank from the Elias is on vacation?
Oh, I will call John his brother, or Santo his brother. We've got him covered.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Frank's always on alert for Tim Kurkjian.
Only the Elias can confirm this stuff that I look up, and we can't use it unless it's right, and they're the only ones that confirm what I got. They confirm this. So Wednesday and Thursday of last week, there were 24 games played, and there were 12 shutouts. Jeff, think about that for a second. Half the games were shutouts. So this is the first time in the history of the game that on back-to-back days, a 2-day span, there were a minimum of 20 games, and half of the games resulted in a shutout. That's the kind of pitching that we see these days in the big leagues. And, you must sit at home and watch these games and wonder what I do. How does anyone get a hit anymore, right?
Well, the pitchers are throwing so hard, and people are striking out more than ever.
Right. It's crazy.
It's a home run or a strikeout.
Right. Speaking of crazy games, the Orioles last week became the first team ever to be behind by 6 runs in a game and came back to win by 14. So they were down 6-0. They came back to beat the Rays 22-8.
Wow. That
game has never happened in baseball history, Jeff. This is why we love baseball so much. Is we watch these games and you wonder, when's the last time that happened? The answer is it's never happened. And we're talking about well over 100 years of baseball history, and these things have never happened. Those people who went to that game probably went, boy, that was a really weird game. And the answer is no one's ever seen that game.
Right. They're just trying to get another hot dog, and they think this might have happened before, maybe not. I don't know.
Right.
All right. Get in line for the Dippin' Dots.
All right. So Garrett Hampson of the Cardinals pitched the other night in a game. He's an infielder. He pitched. So I've got a kick out of this. He pitched 1 inning. He faced 3 batters, threw 3 pitches, and got them all out. He's a position player.
Wow.
Now, Jeff, we know with our position players, they are now throwing it in there at about 40 miles an hour so they don't get hurt and throw it well below the hitting speed just in case. So maybe it's just so enticing, you just want to go up and swing at the first pitch. And maybe that's what happened. But only 3 real pitchers, Tanner Scott, Nick Mears, and Eric Miller this season, have faced 3 batters in an inning, gotten all and retired the side on 3 pitches. And then a position player did it. Does that surprise you?
It surprises me that it hasn't happened more this season, just with everybody trying to swing for the fences, as we just mentioned.
Right. Everyone's trying to do that. Okay, Roman Anthony. What a great baseball name. The Roman Empire has begun. It's begun a little slowly, but the other day, Roman Anthony of the Red Sox had 3 hits. 2 of those were extra base hits. So he is the youngest Red Sox to do that since Ken Brett in 1969. Do you know who Ken Brett is, Jeff? The last name Brett. That must mean something.
George Brett. Is he related?
It's George Brett's brother.
Oh.
Ken Brett was a pitcher. And George has told me multiple times the best hitter in our family growing up was Ken Brett. And Ken Brett, as a pitcher, hit a home run in 4 consecutive starts. He's the only pitcher ever to do that. So He was a reliever at one point in his career, but 4 consecutive starts that he made, he had a home run in each one. That's incredible, right?
So you're just banking on his bat. And I don't want to say this, Dad, because I don't want to sound like an old head, but I'll take that job from you for a moment. I am really sad that we don't have pitchers batting anymore. And even though I live in the Philadelphia area, and since moving here, my wife and I have been cheering on the Phillies, and it's more fun to see more offense, absolutely. And, well, the Phillies wouldn't even really have a team because Bryce Harper would have never DH'd. You get the whole thing. But my point is, it's just sad because all of those little Kurkjians about pitchers hitting are just no longer existing.
Jeff, I wrote a very long story for ESPN.com bemoaning the fact that pitchers will never... Well, they'll hit again, but only here and there. And I think it's a shame because some of the greatest notes of all time came from pitchers hitting. And in the July 4th, 1985 game that Ron Darling is going to detail for us tomorrow night, what happened in that game?
Well,
Rick Camp.
They call it the Rick Camp game because he was a pitcher in the 16th inning and he hit a homer.
18th inning.
18th inning and hit a homer.
A career .060 hitter hit his only major league home run of his career in the 18th inning to tie that game. And you're right, Jeff. They named the game after Rick Camp because he's a pitcher who hit a homer. A few years ago, the biggest home run hit, the most remarkable home run hit in the entire season was hit by Bartolo Colon.
Yep.
A pitcher. I have a million of these notes, and now we don't get to use them anymore because pitchers don't bat except in the case of an emergency.
Well, we talked about when we did a live stream with Dan Lebitard and friends on their YouTube channel, and we shared it on our YouTube channel, so you can follow us. You can watch every episode on our YouTube. Just search for "Is This a Great Game or What?" And you had to take a restroom break, but you had teased the Phil and Joe Niekro little Kurkjian that you have created that, was one of our favorites.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Niekro, a pitcher, had 1,200 plate appearances in the big leagues, roughly, and hit 1 home run. And he hit it off of his brother, Phil. Which, again, these beautiful coincidences happen all the time in baseball, and it just tickles me to no end when we see something like that. And speaking of which, Michael Busch of the Cubs hit a home run at Busch Stadium. So it has been confirmed that Michael Busch, who spells his name B-U-S-C-H, just like Busch Stadium, is the only player named Busch to hit a home run at Busch Stadium. So we have researched that. And so what came of that really fun little note?
So we have to give a big shout out to Dan and Thomas Kelly of Peoria, Illinois. And Dan is dad, and Thomas is the 9-year-old son. They are big listeners. He said, "I've really enjoyed listening to your podcast lately, and we are thrilled to reach out with our first Kurkjian." Thomas has become a huge baseball fan, and this week we went with the rest of our family to see our Chicago Cubs, so they're Cubby fans, play against the St. Louis Cardinals, and Michael Busch hit a home run to give the Cubs the lead. So he had that note, Dad, but then he went a little bit farther. Okay, so he said, "This made us think, has this ever happened at other MLB stadiums?" So in an attempt to be a seamhead, we've made the all-stadium team with some old and current names and old and current stadiums. So we can't confirm whether these players ever hit home runs in these stadiums. In fact, that's not the list. It's just stadium names, first or last, and this list is very creative.
And it's just that a father and his 9-year-old son took the time to sit down and do this. Never mind they did it for our podcast. This is what attracted me to baseball. Is my dad and I used to sit down and do stuff like this all the time when we weren't playing. So let's start off with you take it one at a time.
Yeah, Shelby Miller Park in Milwaukee, pretty great.
Right. Bruce Sutter is our closer on this team. And the stadium that the A's play in Sacramento is Sutter Stadium.
And then we have Merv Shea Stadium, obviously.
And Michael Busch is our first baseman, as he should be.
Rogers Hornsby Rogers center, Toronto.
Right.
He's the second baseman.
Zeke Wrigley is the shortstop.
Need no explanation there, right? Third base is Justin Turner, former Braves Stadium.
I'm pretty sure Justin Turner hit a home run at Turner Field.
Absolutely.
Pretty sure. We should have checked that, but that's okay. We don't want to trump their list. This is their list. We want to
so creative.
Yes. Angel Pagan, of course, the Angel Stadium. Angel Pagan.
It works. Al Humphrey, as in Hubert Humphrey Metrodome.
Right. Covered many games in that place. And Tony Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Way to go, Dan and Thomas Kelly of Peoria, Illinois.
Dad, that is so special. So thank you so much. If you ever have anything like that you want to send to us, you can do so. You can email me, jeff@greatgameorwhat.com. All right, Dad, let's jump into On This Date in Baseball History. What do you have for July the 1st? Very fitting. I love that date.
Right.
7-1.
Walter Johnson pitched a no-hitter. I ever tell you I went to Walter Johnson
Did you
High
go to
School?
Walter? You know, some people email us now, Dad, and say, did I ever tell you I didn't go to Walter Johnson High School?
So, Jeff, on July the 9th, we are going to be doing our podcast from Povich Field in Bethesda, Maryland. And we will be doing it around a statue of Shirley Povich, the great Hall of Fame baseball writer. He used to work for the Washington Post. And he's interviewing Walter Johnson. It's one of the great sculptures you'll ever see. I've been there a million times, of course. Every year we go back there, throw out the first pitch, the big train, Shirley Povich Field. It's so much fun. And we're gonna be broadcasting a show from there with Bruce Adams, who runs the whole show, on July the 9th.
Yeah, so your normal Thursday episode will actually be recorded there next week, which will be really nice to go on location. And we're going to be doing more interviews from the Hall of Fame on induction weekend. We're going to be doing some interviews from Little League World Series. So we've got a big summer lined up. Very, very big.
Right. Speaking of no-hitters, on this date, 1951, Bob Feller pitched his third no-hitter. Wow. Now, Jeff, his no-hitter in 1940, let's see if you remember how I've taught you. What is the significance of the Bob Feller no-hitter in 1940?
Was that opening day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only no-hitter ever thrown on opening day. Right. And all of the Chicago White Sox, this is assuming, Jeff, you assume if your batting average going into the first game of the season is 0-0-0,
right,
then this is the only game in history where everyone's batting average after the game is the same as it was before the game. Right. So Bob Feller, no-hitter in 1951. Let's see if you remember this. 1967, Jim Palmer gave up a grand slam.
Only grand slam he ever gave up in his career, and it was against Johnny Bench.
In the minor leagues.
In the minor leagues. Yeah. Never gave up one in his major league
Almost
career.
4,000 innings pitched. Jim Palmer never gave up a grand slam.
And I think, Dad, we need to revisit the clip of him talking about the scouting report on Johnny Bench. Let's take a listen.
The day before, we played a day game, and Johnny hit a jam shot to right field, and I'd just gotten there because I had the sore arm. And I said, who's that? Who's that guy? They get, he's a punch and Judy hitter. He had like 15 home runs in 21 games. And I walked the bases loaded with a 6-run lead. And Tim, you were around, Earl Weaver. Would you think he was? So he runs out to the mound and says, just throw them all down to the.
Right.
And
right.
I did. And Johnny hit it about 450 feet towards Niagara Falls. And Earl ran right out and took me out of the game, and we went on to win.
I mean, hearing it from Jim Palmer makes it even funnier because he's watching him saying, I don't know if this is right. This guy seems pretty darn good. And he ends up being the greatest catcher of all time to so many.
2 Hall of Famers, Jim Palmer and Johnny Bench. And last thing, Jeff, on this date in 1982, Earl Weaver moved Cal Ripken from third base to shortstop. And just put him in the lineup at shortstop. And Cal Jr. just moved over, and history was made after that. This was classic Earl Weaver. Earl Weaver absolutely valued pitching, defense, and 3-run homers. But if he could ever get power and production from a defensive position, he was always up for doing that. So he took Cal Ripken and moved a power-hitting third baseman who hadn't quite, established himself over to shortstop. That's when Cal Ripken began his, this unbelievable streak where I believe he's one of the 3 greatest shortstops of all time with Honus Wagner and Derek Jeter in some order. And he changed the position the day that he moved over there. Give me a big shortstop, Jeff, who became a shortstop because Cal Ripken showed everyone you could be a big guy to play shortstop.
Alex Rodriguez comes to mind right out of the gate.
Right.
I mean, Chipper Jones was a third baseman, but he was a big dude.
He was a shortstop to begin with,
right,
and then
true.
he switched. Derek Jeter.
Big guys.
Troy Gloss was a shortstop coming up, and most of these guys did that. Nomar Garciaparra, because Cal Ripken showed them that a big guy can play shortstop in the big leagues and make it work.
Dad, I'm so looking forward to everybody joining us with Ron Darling tomorrow. Dad, if people are not on our YouTube yet, you should be, because you need to see what my dad decided to wear for this interview with Ron Darling. I thought it was a very bold choice of your outfit.
Should we tell everyone, or should we?
I think they need to wait. We do reference it in the podcast, so you won't have to go to YouTube to see it. But if you want to support the show, go subscribe to our podcast and follow us there, Dad. Our interview with Dan Le Batard last week was the biggest video we have on our YouTube because all of Dan Le Batard's friends and listeners jumped onto our YouTube page and are now subscribing, which is great.
And then we did, what do we call that, a streaming episode with Le Batard the other night?
Yeah, we did a game watch, a live stream on YouTube, and it was a little hard, Dad, in order to explain how this works to you, but we were live, kind of like television, but on YouTube and on some other social media sites, and we had a blast. Were we on for 3.5 hours?
Almost 4 hours, yeah. And a buddy of mine, Ray Ratto, sent me a text saying, I watched it twice. Twice? Who's got 8 hours? But I love Ray Ratto. He's one of the smartest, funniest, greatest writers I've ever been around, and he watched it twice.
Well, let's shout out some of the guests that joined. It was Eduardo Perez was on it. We had Adnan Virk was on it. Joe Posnanski was on it. David Sampson came through. The
Bobby
list,
Valentine.
Oh,
yeah.
Bobby Valentine was in there, and I just thought it was so special, Dad, all of the people that showed up, and you're going to hate this, for Tim Kurkjian Appreciation Night.
Jeff Miller was on, too.
Yeah.
He came on and explained when Dan tipped some carrot cake out of the press box of Shea Stadium, hit some guy in the head with it. Did it on purpose. Only Le Batard. Great fun, though.
Amazing. Go back and listen to that one. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you're listening right now. Share the podcast with a friend. And we have Ron Darling on your feed tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, thank you for being a part of our family.